And this has been my kitchen.
Well, just when you thought that SonicBlu couldn't tear himself away from work, well, guess what? I'm starting to do cooking episodes again. And for tonight's episode, you gotta have balls. Meatballs! Tonight we're cooking some Swedish meatballs. So I'm going to show you how to make the Swedish meatballs. Now, we're going to need some mushrooms. And of course, the meatballs. Yeah, we got the meatballs. And we're also going to need some heavy whipping cream. Now this is going to make your sauce. We're also going to need some Swedish hackballen, or Swedish meatball, köttbullar, or meatball in German, and this is all going to be in German. So this is basically what I'm going to do is help you translate what is on this package. So without further ado, and I'm going to double up on the recipe, so we're going to do 2 of those envelopes, about 30 meatballs, and about a cup full of heavy whipping cream, and an entire package of mushrooms. We're also going to have instant mashed potatoes on the side, and I've also drawn up some beef-style savory gravy. So we're going to have ourselves a full-blown meal tonight as we dip into the kitchen of SonicBlu, where we're embracing culture from another part of the world, and this time, let's wrap our arms tightly around Sweden. So let's get started. First thing you're going to do is prepare your mushrooms. Now, instead of slicing our mushrooms like we are used to doing traditionally, we are going to cut these mushrooms into quarters. The reason for that is so that you can actually, they'll cook a lot better, they'll taste a lot better, they will really bring out the flavor in your Swedish meatballs. So first, let's get rid of that. And we begin taking our first mushroom. And you can leave the stems on it, you can take them off if you want to, but we're just going to cut them in half, and again, in half. So we're going to cut them into quarters, just like that. I'm going to repeat the process for however many mushrooms we have. 1 and 2, and that's all you need to do. That's all you really need. So cut them in half again, and in half again. I'm going to repeat the process for all of our mushrooms. All of our mushrooms get the same treatment, cutting into the same sizes. And there's 1, 2, okay. Continuing on. And yes, this is a brand new knife set, courtesy of Farberware. I do stand by their products very well. Okay, more mushroom cutting. These are going to be some fine mushrooms. And you're really going to be tasting the mushroom flavor. Because even though we're used to slicing them, but for this dish we're going to cut them into quarters, mainly because when they shrink you'll still be able to taste them. And when they shrink after you slice them, you won't be able to taste that, but you sure will taste these beautiful succulent mushrooms when they are done. And we're going to show you what that will look like when we get there. Alright, so now all of our mushrooms are cut into quarters. That wasn't so bad now, was it? No, it wasn't. So, what we're going to do is we're going to measure out measure out. Let's use the wet measuring cup. For this, I'm going to ask my strainer to join the bowls so I can get to my cup. Now we got our measuring cup, and we're going to measure out 1 cup of heavy whipping cream. This is going to be the base for our sauce. Okay. So it's going to be about half of a container of heavy whipping cream. That's about half. And we're going to put the other half away in case we need some more later. And this stuff lasts a pretty long time. So this stuff won't expire until March. So we have until March to make this again. And then we are going to take our meatballs. And first and foremost, what we're going to do is start cooking these meatballs. I'm probably might need some scissors or something to get them open. Yeah, let me go ahead and get the scissors. Alright. Cut this bad boy open. And dump them meatballs in. That's about 30 of them. And if you get a little more or a little less, that's okay. As long as it's around 30, that's all that matters. And we are going to turn these guys on to about 6. Get them cooking really good. Now, while those are cooking, when they get to be about done, we're going to throw in our mushrooms. Get them cooking a little bit. Mix those together. And then when they start cooking up a bit, and when they're starting to approach doneness, we're going to put them aside in this bowl and start on our sauce. Then our sauce, we're going to add the seasoning mix and stir that all together. Then we're going to reintroduce the meatball and mushrooms back into the dish. Let them cook for a while. Let them simmer on the stovetop. We're going to let them simmer for about 15-20 minutes or until the sauce becomes a nice tannish, brownish, light brownish kind of color. And you'll know when they're about ready. Well, I'll show you when that happens. And then during that time, we'll also work on our mashed potato. That's going to be on the side. So now we can start to hear our meatballs sizzling. Let's reach for our spoon. We're going to mix that around. And fortunately enough, you don't really need to season your meatballs. But if you really want to, you can add some salt and pepper to them. And that will be just fine. But I think these are seasoned well enough that they really don't need it. So we just want to cook these up. And since they're already pre-cooked, we just need these guys to warm up and become nice and hot. And just give them a good quick stir around. Then let them sit there for a little while. Let them achieve a nice warmth before we stir again. And then we'll, from there, add all of our mushrooms together. And I'm going to put this knife here. We no longer need it. That gets thrown away. This gets put back in the fridge so we can save it for later. Okay. And we come with meatballs. Now watch out when you do this with meatballs, folks, because if you start flipping meatballs, since they're round, they could roll out right out of your wok and onto the floor. And if you have a dog in the room, they're going to really eat them off the floor. So you got to beat them to the punch, so to speak. Alright, that's not a bad idea too. Let's go ahead and season those with salt and pepper. And we have our pepper and our salt. So we're going to start dabbing that with salt. Just add it to taste. You know how much you like. And then here comes the pepper. Okay, so that's nice and salted and peppered. That's all you really need to season these meatballs. Now, that sauce is going to have plenty of seasoning in it as well, but this is just going to enhance that flavor a bit. And okay, so now that those meatballs are starting to get done, we're going to add our mushrooms into it and get those cooking up. And the juices from the meatballs would normally help to cook those mushrooms, but just in case it isn't just enough oil, because I think there really isn't that much oil, we're going to turn to aid that along with grabbing a little bit of extra virgin olive oil. And we're just going to add just a little bit over the top and get those cooking really good and get those sauteing up nice. Just a little drizzle, that's all you really need. And then we're just going to mix that in, and that's going to help kind of cook your foods a little better because you won't be cooking them dry. If you cook them dry, you're going to run the risk of singeing them or burning them when you really don't mean to burn them. And by cooking them with oil, it lessens the chance of charring, burning, and it just cooks everything up just perfectly and just adds to the saute. It really does. So, as you can see, our mushrooms are cooked up nice with our meatballs. Doesn't take very long to cook them. And as you can see, our meatballs are now starting to get that little bit of crispiness that we like. So that's when we know we are almost done, is when all of our meatballs have that little crispiness to it. And we want to make sure not to cook our mushrooms too much. That's why we add them in later. So, because once you start cooking mushrooms, they're going to shrink. And because they're a fungus, they do that. They shrink when you cook them. So, I think that's about good on the meatballs and the mushrooms. So what we're going to do is we're just going to pass them off to the side here and just drop them off into the bowl. That is going to be our basis for the Swedish Meatballs. And get as much of them to that bowl as possible. And I knew it. Okay, so okay, now let's go for our cup of heavy whipping cream. That's going to be the base of our sauce. I'm trying to knock as much of that into that as possible. And anything that gets left over from your meatballs are going to be incorporated in with the sauce, and it's just going to add to the sauce in the texture and the flavor. It's all going to be there. Give it a good stir. Alrighty. That's great. Okay, let that start cooking. We're going to reduce the temperature just a little bit. And then I'm going to reach for our package. Now, I want to make sure that I have all the ingredients. Okay, now, our next step after we've added our cream, and this is going to be doubling up on the recipe. Normally, you would only use 15 meatballs and a half a package of mushrooms and a half a cup of the heavy whipping cream. But since we're doubling up, we're using a full package of mushrooms, 30 meatballs, and a cup of heavy whipping cream. Now to that, we're adding 3 cups of cold water. And we're going to slowly mix that in. And this will also help in getting all the rest of that excess heavy cream in your mixing or your measuring cup. There. Nice, nice, nice. Now we got the base for our sauce. So we're going to let this cook up a bit and wait until it's boiling. I'm going to raise that back up to 6. So we're going to raise this back up. And when it starts bubbling a little bit is when we're going to re-add or reintroduce the meatballs and the mushrooms into the sauce. We're going to let it simmer. That's when we're going to turn down the heat a bit to about 5 or maybe 4. So you want to be around medium heat. And let this simmer for about 20 minutes. And if you want to, for an extra added bonus, you can include cooked onion. This does have room for, adding or taking away ingredients. And you can add cooked onion to this dish. I didn't think about it at the time, but you can use it. I just wanted to show you the base of making this dish, which is just the meatballs, the mushrooms, and the sauce. And you're also going to need the mix. Now, if you can't find this particular mix, they do sell, supposedly they sell, Swedish meatballs at Walmart. If you can't find it, this particular kind, they do have Swedish meatball mix at Walmart. You can get 2 packages of them, and it'll be the same recipe. So, we're just going to follow what's on this envelope, which is in German. So, you know, basically I had to look at this from an English point of view and translate it into how to prepare this meal according to the instructions on this package. So we're going to get that guy ready. Ooh. Whoa, whoa. Now that was a real sneeze. I didn't do that with the pepper, folks, but wow. Oh, that smells nice. All right. We're just going to sprinkle that in, and while we're doing that, we're going to stir it in and work out any of the clumps and clusters and things that may form in your sauce. We don't want any clumps or clusters or anything of that nature, so we are going to work our spoon as we add slowly the seasoning into our sauce. And we want to do this without any other ingredient in there because we don't want any of the seasoning to hang on to our ingredients. We want it all in the sauce, and we want it all dissolved evenly in the sauce before we add our ingredients back. So we're going to add that, and it's already starting to become a tannish color already just with the seasonings alone, and we're going to knock the rest of that in there. Now that's just one of the envelopes here. Okay, that's all dissolved. We go for our next one. This is a different brand, but does the job just the same. Nice, nice. Little different color here, but different brand, different color, different ways of doing things. We're just going to stir that in, stir that in. There we go. Okay. And another idea too, folks, you can do to this, not only just add cooked onion, you can also add capers to this meal as well. If you have capers, and you want to add those in too. And you'll want to add those in after you've reintroduced your meatballs and mushrooms into your sauce. But like I said, I don't have any capers. I didn't think about adding onion. I just want to show everybody the base of this recipe, the basics of it, and get everybody to wrap their minds around what they could possibly do to make this their own recipe for Swedish meatballs. And this is just the basics. So you know me, I always like to show you the basics and leave it up to you, the viewer, to make it your own, because that's the art of cooking. I know what you're saying, well, SonicBlu, you could have shown us your method of making it. Yeah, well, I could. Maybe that'll be grounds for a future episode of how SonicBlu makes his own Swedish meatballs. But for right now, we're just doing the basics. And if you, that's a big lump, I'm going to try to work that down. So if you see any big lumps like that one there, kind of just use the back of the spoon to kind of break it down. Even if you have to whack it against the side of your wok or large skillet or whatever you happen to have, go ahead and do that. Just work that big lump down until no lumps are present. And you just got to make sure to get every single one of those lumps out of there. And even if you have to use a whisk, that would be a good idea as well. But usually after soaking in this sauce, usually don't get that many lumps, but this time we got a couple good sized lumps in there. So we're just going to work them out with the back of our spoon, because what if you don't have a whisk? What if you don't have one available? What do? Use the back of your spoon until you can skim through and find no or little to no lumps. You can still find lumps in there here and there. It's not going to kill the recipe, as long as you try to work out as many of those lumps as possible, especially the big monster ones. And also make sure you get them off the bottom of your cooking vessel to make sure they haven't stuck to the bottom and don't later on appear like that one there. See, look at that. See, now that's formed a little bit of a roux there, so we're going to try to make that soluble as possible. That's what happens when you make a roux. You have to really work at it in order to make it soluble again. Okay. Let me just get the rest of that out of there. And just kind of use it in your own method there. Kind of give it a little whisk. A little bit of that, a little bit of this, and there's no more lumps. Except for maybe way up here. But that's okay. Okay, so we're starting to get a nice thicker sauce. Look at that. So it's thickening up to like a very, very runny gravy. So it's not as runny as it was before. Now it's starting to really thicken up there. Alright. A little bit more time on that until we start to see some bubbling action. We are seeing bubbling action. I spoke too soon. We have bubbling action, folks. See the bubbles, 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 bubbles. If I leave this alone, you're going to see it starting to really bubble like crazy because heavy whipping cream contains a lot of dairy. And anything dairy that you cook to a boil is going to boil over a lot more than just average water. It's going to boil the heck over if you let it. And we're not going to give it a chance. So we're going to reincorporate and reintroduce our meatballs and mushrooms back into that sauce. And once we got everything covered with the sauce, and I mean covered, don't let anything appear like it hadn't been stirred in yet. Okay. We're going to make sure everything is even now. Good. This is going to be delicious. I can already taste it. I can't wait for this thing to be finished. But this is going to be some really great Swedish meatballs. Now we're going to let this cook. Turn down the heat to about 4. And we're going to let this simmer for about 20 minutes. So in about 20 minutes we're going to show you what it looks like when finished results. And then we're going to serve it up with our mashed potatoes and gravy, which will already be prepared, so we don't have to show you how to do that. All you got to do is follow some directions that are on the back of the packaging. I'm a pretty simple guy. I'm not going all the way here. I mean, I could, but I just got off of work and I want things to be simple. So that's what we're doing. After work, simple recipe that you could still throw together, and it's not going to cause too much of your energy to be completely drained. Especially when you've been working for 8 hours and you really want to come home and relax, but you have to cook. This is one of those meals where you can actually come home and enjoy throwing together. It's not too hard. It's very simple. During the simmering, you don't even have to stir it if you don't want to, but I'd still keep an eye on it, because anything you cook in the kitchen, you're going to want to keep an eye on. Mainly because you don't want anything to overcook and you want to make sure everything is cooking up fine. The only way to do that is to give it a good check. And while you're at it, stirring occasionally is always a good idea for even the simplest dishes like this one. And boy, this is going to really be delicioso, especially when you serve it with mashed potatoes and gravy. And for an extra added bonus, you could also take cranberries and add a few cranberries to the Swedish meatballs and give it a nice fruity, sweet flavor. There are so many things you can do with Swedish meatballs, and I mean, the possibilities are endless. You can put green onion in there if you want to. You can put regular onion if you want to. You can do anything you want to do. But this is just the base of it. I leave it up to you to come up with your own ideas. I just mainly give you the ideas, throw them your way, and if you try it at home, let me know how it turns out. I'd love to hear how successful you are in your own kitchen. So we're going to make sure that everything is now kind of submerged into the sauce as best as possible while we let it simmer. And we're just going to keep that at 4 because it's still bubbling, it's still boiling there. We're going to take that spoon out of there and place it into our bowl there. And we'll see you back here in about 20 minutes. And I'm going to show you what it looks like when it's about ready. So join us then, and we'll let the eating commence.
Is it ready yet?
God, it's only been 20 minutes. Make that 35. Sorry, 35 minutes. But look at the condition of those meatballs. Look at that sauce. It is just glistening. That's exactly what we want. Glistening meatballs. Glisten, glisten, glisten. Look at it glistening. All those meatballs glistening with flavor. I can't wait to serve this up. And so, what do you say we get a plate and do so? Here's the plate and here's the meatballs. Now, you want to give it a little stir, kind of give it a, bring that sort of like nice tan brown color back before you serve it. And nice smooth sauce there. Oh, this is going to be so fabulous. Oh, I am enamored with this meal tonight. Oh, folks. Get some mushroom in there. A little mushroom in there, an extra meatball there. Yes, folks. Yes, this is what Sweden is known for, folks. Swedish meatballs. A little extra drizzle of the sauce there. Fabulous. Okay, now always check the burners. Make sure they're not turned on before I set a plate on it. And then we're going to take some potato. I made them kind of thick too, so they'll be nice and thick addition to tonight's meal. Slam it on there. Slap it on there. And just and go and reach in for spoon number 3. And just nail it to the plate, just like that. Doesn't that feel good after a long hard day of work? Doesn't it feel good to just come home and abuse your food? All right, now.
As you toss the spoon back into the potatoes.
Here's our beef gravy, which has been heating up in the microwave. And we're just going to take a ladle. That's a noodle spoon. That's a ladle. I'm just going to take our ladle. And the gravy probably cooled up a little bit in the microwave, but the heat from the potatoes is just heating back up right the way it needs to be. Oh, beauty. Look at that beautiful combination of brown on that plate. Delicious. And then we get some more gravy over this way. Beautiful. That is what I call a good looking meal, folks. And that is Swedish meatballs. And now, for the big moment, I'm gonna set this back down again. And I'm gonna grab a full...
I've been working on planes.
Yeah, you just turned the whole counter into an air museum. Look at that. All right. First, we'll get a taste of meatball. And you get a piece of meatball there, and cover it with a little bit of that sauce. All right. Hot. Oh, a little hot. That's hot, but it's good. I'll get a piece of mushroom.
And on you.
Hey, if it don't get on you, it don't belong in you. Remember that. Now for some of the potato. Brown gravy.
Avalanche.
It's store-bought. But when you compare store-bought to something you made yourself, it really complements well what you've made. That's what I'm tasting here. Potatoes are mediocre because anybody can make instant mashed potatoes. The gravy on it, it's gravy. It's store-bought.
Pre-made, store-bought.
Nothing to write home about, but those meatballs are fabulous. And if you don't believe me, try them out yourself. It's an easy recipe, and you saw us make it here from scratch. Well, not necessarily from scratch, but it was good enough to be made scratch. On into cooking with SonicBlu. And now, if you don't mind, I'm going to be sitting down and enjoying my Swedish meatballs and mashed potatoes and gravy. So try this at home, let me know how it comes out, and let me know what other ingredients you add to yours to make it your own recipe. This is SonicBlu Darkfold for Cooking with SonicBlu, telling you that to tune in next time. You don't know what I'm going to be cooking up for you next, but I'm sure you're going to love it, because I have an idea that the next recipe for Cooking with SonicBlu, I'm not going to tell you what it is, but I'm going to add a little more color into your life. And that's all I can say about that. So until next time, this is SonicBlu Darkfold saying, if you're not cooking good, you're not eating good, and this is some damn good meatballs. Try them yourself and see. So delicious. And how the hell did you get down there? Okay, that's one for the bloopers. Remember to wash off any vegetables that fall onto the floor. They're still good. You just have to wash them. Don't have to throw them away because we're not wasteful on food. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so. Pepper for days. All you really need to do is just enhance the flavor of your mushroom, or your meatballs. I knew it was one of those three. If you put marshmallows in this dish, I really don't know where you guys go to enjoy food. I really don't. I mean, who puts marshmallows in Swedish meatballs? Who does that? Certainly not me, though. I just said that as a flub up, so folks, so that's all it is, just a flub up. That's all. Okay, so
I don't remember what country it was, but there's like a coffee shop that puts tofu in the coffee.
That's disgusting, but that sounds like either China, probably China.
No.
It wasn't China?
No, it's not China.
It's not Japan, is it?
No.
And the beauty about using heavy whipping cream is it really does thicken up your sauce amazingly. I did not expect that to happen, folks. That was a blooper.